Dun, 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 dun.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of AI Amigos Show. My name is Marina, and I'm very happy to be here with my good friends James and Chanchao. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry that I'm laughing, but today we were almost running out of time, like to reach to the podcast. But we are very happy to be here. And well, today actually we have a very interesting topic as every week.
Yeah.
Um,
Our topic is why James is so red.
It's the cars in front of me, Jin Chao. What can I do, man? I'm not red anymore.
Well, you were actually matching with the thumbnail of our podcast today, so
There you go. Look, the
Oh,
red face.
there you are again. Well, so speaking of red stuff and shiny stuff or stuff that is under the scope, today we are talking about DeepSeek and how is DeepSeek actually coming into the game in a very different way than the other LLMs that are around. So maybe I will just throw the ball in the field and probably ask Shan Chao, what is your opinion on this? Because I know that you, among the three of us, you were the one who used DeepSeek actually the most.
yeah, that was back then before
Mhm.
before I used Gemini. But yeah, but like I think when we talk about last one with James or the one before that, we're talking about that they released a couple of papers, right? DeepSeek released a paper about their way of training like HC or something to make it more efficient for large language model and also um, is more efficient training and better results somehow. Yeah, and this is like a version 4. They're not out yet, but they were talking about um, sometime in February. So looking forward to use that a little bit. And because like if you're outside of China, like using DeepSeek models probably is the cheapest pay model you can get. I mean, like if you use it directly from DeepSeek, the API has like a nighttime they have like kind of only cost 1/3 of the original cost when all the China sleeps. So it's pretty good.
No, yes, and now that you mentioned this, something that is important to point is that when the big companies they have researchers working on different um, projects or improvements or features, um, they cannot really patent the algorithms, and this is something very important to mention because many startups that I work with, they actually go to want to move forward and said, okay, I want the IP, I want to actually get the license for this, this is the copyrights and everything. And the main point is you can have the IP, for example, for the name of your company, but not actually for the patent. And this is why now DeepSeek released the research paper as well. Even though they don't release the entire code, everything that is research based is open source. So then it's there. You just need to go and well, pay attention, have a look. I see that we have many people attending live today. Welcome to the show, and feel free to jump to our conversations. We would love to interact with you. And we would like to remind you that this podcast is sponsored by Tequila AI. So then, if you are planning to implement AI solutions in your organization, now is your chance, and you can tell them that you go from our end. Um, and coming back to the point, now, Janchao, you mentioned that DeepSeek could be one of the cheapest deals, let's say, that we have there. And I would say that China, in that sense, is pairing, let's say, with models um, that they are actually have very cheap deal. So, do you think that this would actually affect the market, or people will keep using the tools that they consider they are the best? As you said, like before you were using a lot DeepSeek, now you use more Gemini, and then, well, your opinion can change.
I don't think it would change. If you're outside of China, you probably use other ones more, right? It's for Gemini, it's only 20. In Ireland, it's like what, 23 euro a month. I mean, you get everything with it. But if you're doing if you're coding for using the APIs, yeah, probably DeepSeek is still a good option. But also, like if you have an API from Open Router, right? That's supposed to they have a lot of free ones you can test it out, but not as stable. If you want a stable output, all that probably you better pay. But in there, I still think DeepSeek is one of the cheap one, very capable one. There's a few other from China now as well. Quim is one, and other Kimi, I think, is from Alibaba or something. There's a few other options as well now. Yeah.
Well, so something that actually get my attention, well, if we continue talking about what is, this research, what does it mean, for the market in general, is what are the risks, because the main issue that I see with certain LLMs are the regulations. Now here in Europe, the companies need to inform where the data is coming from, where the data that they use to feed their models is coming from, and that one can be a restraint, I would say, even though like it works fantastically well.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I don't know what's how those people get the training data in China. I don't know that well now what's going on in China, but like I told you, when I was back in China last year, I find it really cool. Like DeepSeek can question. You can ask a question in DeepSeek. It can recommend your doctor, which hospital is the best, and all that. That was pretty useful for the daily, right? So yeah, maybe they they didn't have the best. Maybe they can scrape all the website. I don't know, but that was quite useful to me.
Well,
Is
yes.
not ChatGPT doing that as well? Like, where you can ask like recommendations, it'll give recommendations in the area.
Yeah, it does now. Maybe it did before, but just the use cases, right? So I haven't used that.
I mean, you can always ask it, right? So then you will get an answer. But the main point here, and I think it is important to highlight, is the different use that the users have in different regions, right? So it's not the same using this in Europe than in Latin America. For example, today I talked to a future founder, well, actually a current founder, but like a person who is trying to build something else. And he told me that in his country, in Latin America, there are places where the doctors, they don't reach, or they literally have know a lot of people in hospitals. And then there are medical apps, or let's say tools, that are helping people to identify what is the problem, kind of getting the diagnosis until they can reach to a hospital, which is something that I cannot imagine here in Europe. And especially with all the limitations that we have in the use of AI. But in China, for example, you have those machines in the hospitals right away, that they give you they provide the medicine and all.
I think a regulation, a lot of people are saying in Europe is over-regulated. So a lot of things is really, really slow. Just thinking about, even I think Ireland specifically, a lot of stuff is quite slow, right? Like you can have Uber in America a long time ago. Now Uber in Ireland, you still need to have taxi licenses to protect. You have to protect certain people, right? Certain job types, and then the other thing is like the scooter thing, right? You have to have a certain scooter can't really reach that speed and all that. And I think it's over-regulated.
Yes, and there are, in general, because I talk a lot with academic people and with people who are actually building, and they use LLMs like DeepSeek, for example. There are kind of three risks that they always mention, and one is, the capability risk that the LLM has, for example, the accessibility risk as well, if it is open for everybody or not. if you have to pay for it or not, if you are using certain documents that are, let's say, private for your organization, and of
Mhm.
course the governance risk. So then I still believe that DeepSeek is playing really well. And I also feel that so they are actually in the game with a very good very good solution. But the problem is, depending on the region, how the acceptance is or not. That is
Yeah,
kind of an issue here, I think.
this kind of like reminds me what we're doing in a project, right? When you're in IT, you start a project, you're thinking about like, oh, we can do this, we can do this, we can do that, we have to do this, you're overthinking about stuff. Do a POC, let it run first, right? And see the problem during it's wrong and adjust. And don't think too much at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm,
Right?
mm-hmm.
That's how I think about it. But back to the DeepSeek, it's pretty cool now to see their capacity. Um, I find the news really interesting in the Chinese website. It's really, really interesting. Okay, so this is DeepSeek. And start with the person on the web was published in the video was saying DeepSeek is doing wrong calculation. Even you ask him to calculate again, he give you the steps incorrectly. So he asked 330 add 110, and DeepSeek says it's 460.
Oh.
And he keep asking, so breaking down for me, how do you calculate that? And he said 300 plus 100 is 400, and 30 plus 10 equals 260, and it's 460. And then he got really, really mad on top of it and start to saying kind of like bad words and all that. And straight away,
It sounds like my parents when I was doing my homework when I was a kid.
And then
Well,
okay, yeah, and DeepSeek turned and says, okay, yeah, oh, it's 440. Explain it really, really correct, step by step. What they find out later on is they find out they don't apply 100% of compute power at the very beginning. So you are using a smaller model at the back end to save their energy. Until the moment you find out it's not right or something, and then the real power kicks in 672 parameters and go a billion parameters kicks in. You're using the full version. I find that really, really interesting.
well, and much faster, right? So then, because you can get many more answers, I would say. Here we have a comment from one of our viewers. I feel that globally there hasn't been an ideal balance between regulations, rules, innovation, and opportunity. EU too much regulation, but better than the USA. Well, so I would say it depends, right? Depends, always depends on how you are looking at this. We always say that the grass looks greener on the other side. On the other side, but it is true that here we are overregulated, but in the US the main issue is that I think the regulation is not really enforced. And well, the same I would say with Latin America or China. Maybe there are not like such regulations that protect really much the the data of the users.
But this is just for us. This is for us, like immigrations, right? You've seen the other side. If you haven't seen the other side, you wouldn't know.
Yes, yes, totally. And we send you a hug as well with our precision as well and our accuracy. Thank you for watching the show, and feel free to actually jump here to the conversation. But now, coming back as well to the point of how the companies are using it, I haven't seen yet any middle-sized organization that is working, like close to me on a daily basis, that tell me, we are using DeepSeek. I know a lot of they tell me I am using GPT, I'm using Gemini, even Grok, but nobody told me like, oh, like I am using DeepSeek. In the past, a couple of months ago, then yes, but now that there are almost no people, and I believe this is because you need to comply now according to the EU AI Act with this information on how are you training your model, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and there is where I see that it could be a problem here in Europe
Well,
at
it's,
least.
yeah, it's also probably easier to use the European company, right? So as well,
Yes,
it's
well,
inside.
of course, but it shouldn't be the case. It shouldn't be the case with a product that is so complete and so good as DeepSeek. Now, the thing as well is I feel that at the moment we are in a very, I would say, like a fighting political situation
Mm-hmm.
where the let's say the ban of the use of certain apps in certain countries also stop people from saying, okay, I will use this,
But that's
so
the yeah, that's the larger international policies of different countries, right? And then yeah, it's kind of power play. And so as coming to the second topic of like Nvidia sell a lot of H200 chips to China, right?
yes,
And so finally China gets a little bit better chip now. But to my understanding is that for everyone knows about H200. And wait a second. I will
there were
remove gems somehow. Yeah.
there are
So
so
everyone knows about the H200 is basically is a couple years old. It's 2024. So Nvidia has actually kind of cleared out their stock to China. Otherwise, they won't have.
Their old inventory, yeah.
Yeah.
but
So if they don't sell it, wouldn't be able to sell it anymore later.
yes. Well, so then my question that follows up here is, regardless of the, let's say, the language model that you're using behind it, what could be actually the risks that we can see now with the open source? I would say like the open source now is accelerating the process. It's a kind of, let's say, force because during the COVID, I remember like all the communities started, and actually today I deliver a workshop and we were talking about like how many information you can find in official documentation that is actually built by the communities. So then the open source is there. Do you think that it would actually affect the way the big companies are working?
Of the how they use the LLM. Is that it?
Exactly, because like the thing is, there is a lot of open source information. There
I
are
did that.
even open source, and the thing is, like, who is actually getting the most benefit out of this? The startups, the countries, the competition, the big companies. Because
Yeah.
the thing is, we cannot compare, for example, a small organization with, let's say, Google. That Google has all the data that they need, and it's
Mhm.
different. You need to actually collect from zero.
Well, I think what Google has that's over a competitive advantage as well is not just the data, but they have enterprise customers where they now like they're integrating their software. So, if you say, well, I'll develop you something that communicates with your email, what's you stored in company documents, calendar, and Google's like, well, we already have all that. Just pay one monthly low fee of whatever, and away you go.
That's exactly the reason when I'm sold.
Didn't
When
take
you
much, Chow.
well, but in the end, what I wonder is that with all these open source resources that are there, I don't know, I feel that somehow maybe we are moving towards a world that is actually, I don't know, the AI dominance is decided by code openness, rather than the chips, for example, the business that Nvidia did with China.
I feel like at the end of the day now, this is a first principle thinking, right? And it's not just the AI, the kind of cryptocurrency that side as well. Everything is rely on and on the energy, right? The only two countries can win right now is probably China and US. European has no kind of no leg in the battle at the moment, because energy-wise, it's just not up to the speed with those two countries.
What about Anthropic? Anthropic is, are they?
Well, so also
When they
when you
look it
see
up.
when you see what is happening in Middle East, right? In Middle East, they are super advanced with the use of AI. I still believe that the regulations are good, but Europe is actually getting behind in some senses. I just showed there, the comments of some of our audience that is saying, hello, hello, feel free to jump into the conversation. We would love to hear your opinions. If you are a founder or you are working in an organization, if you have used DeepSeek or you are working with NVIDIA environment, we would love to know your experiences.
Yeah,
Go.
Anthropic was started in the US, sorry.
It depends on the market size, right? And the pricing point. There is a bit. There's an interesting news last week as well, or the week I read before. DeepSeek and all those Chinese model was used a lot in African countries because it's cheaper, and yeah, so.
No, 100%, 100%. But it is actually useful for them because they still collect the data, and as there is not much regulation in terms of, the data that you are sharing, then it's actually good. It's actually useful. Well, it happened in Latin America a lot, for instance, not only in Africa. The thing is, the market in Europe, I feel it's huge. If you have AI solutions, now you talk with managers in different organizations, and all of them, they want to implement AI. The only thing is like they don't know where to get started. Some of them, they don't even know what is the problem that they are facing, right?
But this way, when we see the company like DeepSeek and Chinese company or US company kind of spread all over the world to Africa, to all those places, would that affect their model later on there, right? If they trend, they just have probably better model. They collect more user informations or user habits from different continents. And this is where the problem is. If we overregulate in Europe, how does our own model, when we create it, to compete with other models and not even on the price level? You know what I mean? And there's a cheaper stuff out there, and you're overregulated as well. Then people can't really use it, and I feel like it's strange. Like we have this 1894 that time China has the war with UK. Right? That was a problem. The problem with China that time was 100 years, 200 years. We're closing up the borders, and everything is closing. There's no trades going outside. That's where the people really slows down development. And you can't build walls around stuff and not communicate, not compete on the world stage. You get left behind. Do you know what I'm saying? So.
Oh yes. But something that is very interesting when you mention about this and about the collection of the data and all. I remember in one of the programs that I was leading, there was a founder that had a very good idea trying to connect the feelings, let's say, of people with the suggestions or the recommendations that the LLM is given, right? Not just about, the logic that we see every day, but, with the feelings. And the same, happened with another founder that was working with music and said, okay, I want to have the same song translated, for example, which he actually achieved. But he said, I want to actually have the feeling of the singer in the song, like I want AI to do this for me. And I remember back at that time, I talked to both of them and said, as an idea, it's fantastic. But the thing is, we need to remember that AI is a piece of code. So it cannot have the feeling, it can maybe mimic a little bit, but it cannot really have the feeling,
Well, what does that I don't know. It's something in my mind. It's funny. I'm just thinking about AI was writing words. And then someone is saying, I'm happy, I'm saying long. Just
but hold on. There are many people who are using, for example, ChatGPT and on the phone, and they are using it as a psychologist or asking advice for different purposes, right? Like, okay, my friend is tired of listening to me every day, all the time with the same, so I am using it. Okay, you are feeding the server, but you get an answer, and then in the end, it's kind of, people feel it closed. The only thing is, I feel that some LLMs are actually very, how to say it, condescendent. They tell you like all the good parts of you, and then it's kind of okay, you believe it, and maybe it's just how you're training the model for that.
Well, that's the guardrail, right? And that's why it can curse if you. And,
but it keeps the memory, so then that's the point. It actually now retains the memory if you just allow it to do that, and then it can keep bring up topics that you discussed with it before. So it's something that
stuff about your, but remember when you said this, and remember when you did this, and remember, that's not a good thing.
But nobody wants that. Nobody wants hard truths. That's the thing, right? Nobody wants hard truths. You see.
I already have a wife. I don't need something else like this.
Well, guys, you would be surprised. I have seen so many people like this with this kind of tools. Well, even there are apps, right, that are kind of acting as a mental coach or something like that. And I think here in Europe, they are highly regulated, but they can succeed a lot in other markets, like in Asia. But I would say like it's good or it's bad. I would say, yeah, it's fantastic that it's regulated and there is like a professional maybe behind it, but it doesn't happen all the time. And I would say
think it would take off. It's just a small section. People are over worried. But look at the Japan. Digital companions has been there for 10 or 15 years. It hasn't taken off, hasn't taken over the world, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Not yet.
Well, so
maybe you don't make cartoonish, you'll be okay.
Well, but the thing is, in that sense, I totally agree, about the over worry, but at the same time, it's kind of good to know where this data is coming from. So why are we getting the answers that we get? That one would be actually good. But there is another thing as well, how the big companies, the big tech companies, they're using it. Because they are not using it for the companies as such, they're using it as well for the individuals.
But I was thinking about something just still on the last point, right? And just thinking about LLM as a person. Like, do you have that kind of friend, such an ass kisser all the time? I don't think I have that kind of friends. I would be sick of it.
Wouldn't you want a friend like that, Jin Chao, that's always telling you you're the best, you're the greatest, you're amazing?
I don't know.
I need that one. I need that one in my life.
Maybe we're all different. I wouldn't want that kind of. It's so fake.
No, you want someone to tell you the truth. I get that what you're saying. You don't want someone to be like telling you what you want to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, here one of our one person I provided says that my startup's business model is based on having users confront their hard truths in order to prevent burnout or other challenges.
Yeah.
Well, the hard truths are actually things that nobody wants to face, right? So there are many people who go to the to do therapy with a counselor, and then they said, "No, I don't want to talk about this," and they never come back.
Nobody make a model who can curse. That would be fun.
Well,
like a drunk guy.
Well, it would be.
Isn't that grok? Isn't that not grok?
maybe you can actually achieve it using not GPT, because GPT, as I said, is very condescending. Unless you explicitly say, act as, I don't know, like a very critical person, and highlight this. That would be actually the main point. But that's not a bad idea. If you think about this startup, it's not a bad idea.
You make friends with the friends I have is people who has flaws on certain part, and which slightly kind of different than yours, but they have flaws. If a perfect person in front of me, I wouldn't be friends with them. Why do you need friends with me for, right? So
Sorry, I'm reading here. Like, I was laughing because of this comment. In my experience, AI always answers positively and gives a positive reinforcement always. Well, in most of the cases, yes, and sometimes you have to, okay, be very critical, tell me this, and still, you get some kind of highlights point on yourself, like, no, like people like you or whatever, something like that. So
But
then,
what if you want the truth and then you go like, no, that's too much. That's too much.
yeah,
well,
like,
I would
if
tell
you,
you, I would tell you
if
something
you
very
use
funny.
like a, sorry,
I
go
would
ahead.
I would tell you something very funny. I remember I was talking with a CTO that we were discussing about this, and the CTO said, "Okay, but when you ask for the recommendation, you believe it. So then, why you don't believe that you are the best?" Anyway, when GPT tells you that, and he made me laugh a lot, with this, because it's kind of, okay, it's true, but that it's extremely flattering, like it can't be, that much. Anyway, or giving you like always like a positive answer. But the thing here is, do you think that DeepSeek will also be like that? Because the experience that they have is mostly with GPT, in this kind of conversation. But I never tried with DeepSeek. With DeepSeek, I try, but only for the technical part. Never asking, like, oh, what do you think about this? Like, would I succeed or something like that?
It just tells it to you in Chinese, isn't that right, Jin
I
Chao?
think the problem with DeepSeek, people using less and less now is because the searching function. Because in Gemini and ChatGPT, you can use Google and searching better. DeepSeek, because of China, Great Wall, all that sort of stuff, their searching function when you ask us to search internet isn't as good as the rest. But I find it funny as well. But if you're using native language Chinese, it act a lot better than ChatGPT and all that. But like when they do the search, it feels like kind of translated and search it and come back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, speaking about this, I remember I watched a video that was generated by AI, right? And it was in Spanish. And the Spanish that was there, it was horrible. It was kind of okay. This is not actually really making a lot of sense if you talk with the native speaker, right? But of course, the intention of the author was, well, was actually showing, okay, this is like explaining, let's say, that same in English and then in Spanish, but the translation was really bad. So then probably one of the models that they were using was not really good or deep with other languages.
Yeah, we can talk about that. I think some of the model do use English as base and translate in between. They don't really do the native straight away, So I think I do experience this from some time. I think ChatGPT on English on Chinese stuff was somehow they translate it. And then there's a funny Chinese company. Well, this is not good stuff. They were saying their model is the smart ones. They made themselves and all that, and then the backend is just a wrapper to GPT because they asked to make a flag and make a US flag instead of Chinese flag. The user was like, "What the hell is this?" It was so funny, caught red-handed.
So we have another comment here. Guys, it's amazing that you are commenting. Please feel free to jump to the conversation. I would also highlight the new DeepSeek OCR model. This 7 GB open weight with license model is crazy. Literally any GPU can run it, and the quality is close to expensive enterprise solutions like Amazon TextRack. Well, that's actually very cool. Have you used it
on my Mac Mini? I'm actually looking for a small model to run on the Mac Mini. James got me, but I pay for it.
There you go. Yeah. Well, I mean, I brought it for you, Jin Chao. You bought it. I want people think that Marina's going to be saying, "Well, why didn't James get me one?" No.
I don't want to start that fight. This fire, is inside house. But Michael, let us know if you tried at work, if you tried to build something. It would be very nice to hear your experience as well with this.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention as well, speaking of like, what happened. So one of the main things that we talked about there is that, DeepSeek, the market took a $600 billion hit. Well, recently now that's what I was saying about Anthropic, they came out with Claude Cowork, and the markets have been taking a big hit because of their integration, and there's software companies been taking a hit. There's an article on a lot of financial news. They're saying it's about $1 trillion hit on market capitalization. Yeah, in the last few days since they've announced it. So yeah, it's a pretty big one. I mean, and we were looking at what was it called now, because now the name has changed. Now it's Clawbot. What was it before?
Yeah, I do feel that a little bit hype on that one.
Yeah, but the reason I'm saying is that that was actually doing is what Claude Cowork can actually do. But the Claude Cowork has security, because remember that was like a big. I mean, you can do a bit more. Someone was talking about today. You could maybe set up a Docker image and keep it, isolated.
OpenClaw, right? Yeah. I think there's still articles about security issue on this current.
It's very serious, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought about what Marina was talking about earlier, like when people saying, "Oh, I want AI." I feel like a lot of people jumped into that simply because, "Oh, I want to get into this latest and greatest AI thing," without taking into account safety and security issues, and a lot of people got hacked. API keys became public, and it was a real disaster.
Well, that's why, many organizations, they request certain, quality certifications like ISO, for example, ISO 27001 or DORA, if you're working with finance. There are many certifications, but nevertheless, it's something that it doesn't really guarantee you that you will not suffer an attack. It's kind of okay. The chances are lower, but still, it's there.
Well, this because I think the system. Yeah, I think a lot of people jump on this OpenClaw. Yeah, you can install it, one command and all that. But I think anybody who wanted to learn AI, try to use AI with different tools and all that, be very careful with using API keys, because that thing can rack up really quickly if you don't care.
Yeah, of course.
And then the other thing as well, they were talking about it trading. Remember, there was like, oh, it made over 200%, and that was like one person, and then all of a sudden now everybody wanted it and downloaded. People were losing money left and right. They thought, oh, I'm going to make all this money because it's going to trade the stock market. I'm going to be rich, like that.
We all want that.
and it was the opposite of that. That was it paying, But yeah,
we just fish in the sea. There's a sharks look at the pond, see, all the fish swimming here. I'm gonna buy it here. That's exactly.
There was definitely blood in the water. There was definitely blood in the water.
Well, what they always try to say, guys, is buy coding is great. You want to build some models, build faster, build efficiently. But you have to be careful, always. And this is why it is also very good to have people who really understand what is happening behind. And especially to avoid this kind of stuff and in organizations, right, where they can really lose a lot. And I would say even worse, like some companies, they can lose their reputation. This is something very, very hard to actually come back from. And we have seen that. Guys, I think we are reaching to the end of our episode today. We are almost like 40 minutes. Thank you so much to our audience. It was lovely today interacting with you. I love
James had about 25 minutes. James wasn't in it. James was dry.
Yeah, I was always red, and look at me now. Now I'm regular color.
now James is normal again. But it was amazing interacting with you. Thank you so much. Feel free to subscribe our channel, follow us, add us to LinkedIn. And let's keep in touch. We would love to know your experiences. Jean-Chao, James, thanks a lot for your participation today. It was amazing as always. Remember that this podcast is sponsored by Tequila AI. So then if you're planning to implement AI solutions to your organization, this one is your chance. And you can have experts that can tell you how can you implement AI and maybe identify the pain points with you. And again, subscribe to our channel. We would love to see you in other podcasts. Thank you so much, and see you next week.
See you guys next week.
I know.
Outro music cue.